Hi guys, thank you for having me. I'm pretty excited to talk to you today about the importance of customer centricity, why customers should be the foundation of your business and product strategy, how to make that a reality, and then from there it's all blue sky. So before we jump in, by a show of hands from 0 to hell yeah, who works at a customer-centric company right now? Doing pretty good. I got a hell yeah, that's good. Any others on this side? Team left is winning, good. One, Amazon, okay, I get it. Cool, well, so we have a good amount of customer centricity in the room. That should make this a breeze. So let's jump right in. First of all, the reason I asked and the reason that it's actually really nice that a lot of people have a customer-centric strategy in this room is because it's a almost self-evident and critically important thing that is really easy to forget. It's really easy to be distracted by other things and suddenly put timelines or competitors or other things at the center of your strategy and what you're going to do. So I'm really excited to talk to you about it today. So just a little bit of an outline first. I'll give a little intro, but thank you so much. I actually got a really good detailed intro. I appreciate it. We're going to talk about what the goal is, what we're trying to build in general as product people. We'll introduce customer centricity and the concept of working backwards. We'll explore a couple of alternatives briefly. We'll figure out how to learn about customers, how to convey that, and then we'll take a look at a brief real-world example from the world of horror. So who am I? I'm Saleem. I head up product for direct-to-consumer video at AMC Networks. AMC, if you think about it, is largely a B2B company. If you watch The Walking Dead, whether it's on Netflix or at home on an Apple TV, you have a relationship with that company, Xfinity or Spectrum or Netflix, not with AMC Networks. And so about 4.5 years ago, the company said, actually, we want to go and figure out a competence in direct-to-consumer. What does it mean to build D2C product, D2C marketing, D2C technology? And so today, we've been building a platform that you can think of as operates mini Netflixes in different genres. So one of them is Shudder. It is for customers who love horror. And when they open Netflix, it just does not have the right or enough high-quality horror for them. And so Shudder is the place for all horror, thriller, suspense content. And you might ask me, do I like horror? I do not, but I have watched a non-zero amount of it since starting, so I've really actually started dog fooding it, and it's pretty interesting and kind of creepy, and there's a bunch of different types of it, so it's interesting. You can think of this content as stuff that we're acquiring. It's not AMC content, so we have multi-million-dollar budgets around content licensing, creating original programming, podcasts, et cetera. And then you can watch it on apps anywhere that you would watch a normal kind of OTT experience, web, iOS, Android, and a fleet of living room devices. There's another one to call out, Sundance Now, which is more Sundance-y, indie films, documentaries, things like that. To tell you a little bit about my path, I started in engineering in undergrad, worked at a little startup called the Central Intelligence Agency briefly in aerospace and defense, went into healthcare tech from there, meandered around some more. Michigan, any Michigan in the house? Go blue. There it is, I like it. Amazon for a few years, went to Viacom, worked on the digital side of events, got to meet Taylor Swift at the VMAs. We're pretty serious right now, so I'll probably be on our next album. Like when we break up, it'll be a heartbreaker. You'll see. And now AMC for the last 4 years. So, cool. What's the goal? What are we trying to do here as a product? I'm going to steal this from productplan.com. Product management is the practice of strategically driving the development, market launch, and continual support and improvement of a company's products. I agree with this. It's a bit sterile, but I agree with it. I'm going to try to distill it a little simpler. Our job is to build experiences which delight our customers and further our business goals. If you don't delight your customers, if it's not an enjoyable experience for them, they will not come back. You will lose them. And if you don't further your business goals, you will lose your job. So you have to kind of do both to advance your product in general. So now that we know the goal of what we want to build, is customer centricity, the best way to do it? So first, what do we mean by it? I want us to all take a second and embrace the cliche. Any customer-centric presentation is not complete without a good circa 1997 Bezos picture saying, rather than ask, what are we good at and what else can we do with that skill, you ask, who are our customers? What do they need? And then you say, we're going to give that to them regardless of whether we currently have the skills to do so, and we will learn those skills no matter how long it takes. Definitely cliche to have a Bezos quote, but it absolutely hits to the core of what we were speaking about today, which is that if you truly understand your customer, truly understand their needs and wants, you will build something that will inevitably be successful in the product market fit and in your business. But that's not enough cliche for me, so I also put a Jobs quote. You've got to start with the customer. It's highly relevant. You've got to start with the customer experience and work backwards to the technology. You can't start with the technology and figure out where you're going to sell it. So before we jump into customer centricity and working backwards and how to make that happen, what are some of the alternatives to customer centricity? You could be competitor-centric. You could think about what everyone else in the room is doing, and you could react really quickly to everyone else. This actually probably works pretty well in a gun battle, but in the world of product and technology, you have to understand this often brings you closer into competition and rather than differentiation from your competitors. If you think about it, if you're actually trying to emulate and understand and anticipate where your competitors are going, you'll often follow them into a bad place if they're going the bad way. And if they are listening to customers and they are on the right track, you'll probably get there slower and later to market than them. So I'm not saying to ignore competition, ignore the market, but it's something to pay attention to, but cannot be your cornerstone of your strategy. The other way you could look at the conference room centric. Please raise your hand if you've ever been in a conference room with multiple executives, each with an opinion. And has everyone been happy with that experience or content? No, yeah. So we've all been in the 7th level of hell here, and it's not fun. And in fact, actually one time I remember I was in a meeting at Amazon where we had gone over a document, and it was not a good document, so there was not really much to go on. And someone was complaining that the guy basically who's getting paid the most in the room was making the decision. And he responded, I don't want to make the decision. It's your fault for not coming with the data. And I think that's really telling of actually a good leader to say, like, I don't want to be making a unilateral random decision. But unfortunately, I feel like, as the show of hands showed, we often have companies where the person is not so self-reflective. He probably meditates. I'm not sure. So that's a failure, right? And then a third way, you could be feature-centric. You could say, how many features can I put into this product for my customers? And so I give you the first smart salt dispenser tower called the Smalt. This is a real thing. This is not a parody. It is a Bluetooth-enabled salt dispenser. It has an LED mood light programmable by their iOS or Android apps. It has a speaker to stream your favorite songs. You can choose in the app or via a dial on top one of 4 salt dispensing modes, including sprinkle, pinch, pour, and I don't know, deluge. I don't actually know what the 4th one is. And it's Alexa enabled because I don't even understand the use case. But this is what happens when you say, how many features, like, oh, my customers need features, my users need features. If I have features, they will use this. And then this is bad. I think we all agree. And if you need any more evidence or reason that you should be customer-centric, I was recently reading a Forrester research article that said that companies that identify as customer-centric have happier employee satisfaction, have better employee retention. I know employee churn is one of the worst types of churn, and also have a higher rate of growth of revenue. So there's all these reasons to be customer-centric. I don't think you need to be convinced. I think it's something that actually people need to be more top of mind and actually understand, how do I make this actionable? So let's jump into that. This is, I think, the most important thing to show you today is a framework about how to think about your customers, how to think about what you're building, and what to take away from this in terms of making something actionable in the companies where we work. So there's 5 questions that I want to walk through, especially the first 2 as the most important in understanding of your customer. It is, who is the customer? What is their customer problem or opportunity? What is the most important customer benefit we're delivering? How do you know what your customer needs and wants? And lastly, what does the experience look like? So we're going to jump into the first 2. So first, who is your customer? Demographics are easy. I've worked at companies that says, we're targeting 18 to 44, equal gender split, male, female. We're hitting everyone up. Everyone's going to use this product. It's going to be a hit. You have to go deeper. It's deeper than demographics. It's deeper than psychographics. The goal is really to describe their needs and wants in their own voice. A lot of people say this is actually a user persona, and we can embrace this. We'll talk about this in a second. So my recommendation is to talk to your users. User research is imperative. And you need to make hard choices. You have to realize you can't serve everyone. You can't serve every age demo, every gender demo, every location, every country. Making hard choices earlier actually leads to a lot less pain later on. And in getting to the needs and wants part of the persona, we're going to talk a little bit about understanding that customer and what problems they have. This is to the core of creating a user persona. So what I'm describing here is an active way to go out and talk to your users, to do user testing and user research, to better understand where they're coming from, their daily behavior, where's their pain, what could be better. So first I'll advise to start with, when we come out of this research, we will better understand blank. It's nice to have this North Star, because otherwise you could ask any number of questions. People will come in from left and right and say, can you add that to the survey? Can you add that to the survey? How do they feel about mustard? And in the end, you have a very, I don't know why mustard, but I was talking about hot dogs earlier. And you will have a mess of a survey or a mess of an interaction. And you'll, in the end, you will not any better understand a specific part of this user's life. So you really need to come in with that North Star that's going to guide how you're going to converse with these users, with these customers. Second, don't ask leading questions or seek affirmation. Especially when you do user testing in person, people like to say, yeah, that's cool, you did a great job, thanks so much for building this, I'm a fan. We've had customers of Shutter in the office to show off TV living room apps, and I think one time we made a mistake where we just kind of started asking them about the app, and they said, this is great, we love it. And we said, oh, this is actually the thing that we replaced. You know, like, I haven't shown you the new thing yet. And they said, oh, we love that even more. And this is a mistake, right? This is a pitfall, because when you seek affirmation, when you ask leading questions, people want to please other people. Third, focus on questions that unpack their existing behavior as opposed to asking them to predict their future habits. This is the classic kind of Henry Ford, if I asked people what they wanted, they would want a faster horse. The point here is to understand the underlying pain, the underlying want or need of the user, rather than saying, you know, I'd actually like this button to be a little bit bigger, or I'd like this button to be red over here. Fourth, ask 5 whys. This is helpful in all parts of life. So for example, you could say, okay, the Titanic sunk. Why? Because we hit an iceberg. Why? Oh, sorry, why? Because the front fell off, I guess. Second, why? Because we hit an iceberg. Why is that? We didn't see it in time. Why is that? They actually only had iceberg sighters on one side of the ship at any given time. And why was that? They didn't have backup iceberg sighters. And so if they had had a backup for the guy who was sick or played hooky, they wouldn't hit an iceberg. And it's really helpful to root cause underlying pains when the initial problem could be very vague, could be very ambiguous, and could just be a monster. And last, your customers are the subject matter experts on customers. This is a really important one. We have found extreme success in treating the customer as the teacher in these sessions and really being the student and learning about their life. When you're going in and kind of grilling them and trying to understand certain parts of their pain, people often close up. It's really helpful to actually be receptive and have them just walk you through part of their day or part of their experience, whether with your service or in the time before or after, and how they want to use your product. One other thing I'll add here, and this is a really important part of really understanding this user, is that this is all proactive. This is all user research and user testing. I also want to point out the importance of seeking feedback whenever it's available to you. So if you have an app in the App Store or Play Store, obviously being receptive and analyzing that research, seeking out NPS scores, seeking out feedback, looking through support traffic, any sort of basic analysis you can do on sentiment tagging, things like that. It doesn't actually take like a massive ML team to just look at a bunch of tickets and tag them. So yeah, all of that is very valuable, and just seeking customer voice wherever you can find it. Okay, so now we know who our customer is at a pretty deep level, not just how old they are and where they live. We know a little bit about what the problem or opportunity is, and just think about what is the most important customer benefit and kind of fleshing out the product from there. The customer benefit, I'll be simple here. How does this help your customer? How does this make their life better? Don't use the words revenue growth. If you're talking about revenue growth, if you're talking about market entry, you're talking about the business. You're not talking about customer benefit. Be concise. The fourth question is, how do you know? People have a lot of assertions. We talked a little bit before about the conference room with countless sparring VPs and SVPs and EVPs saying, this is the answer, no, that's the answer, you should build this, you should build that. How do we know what to build? How do we know about the customer? Number one is data. Wherever we can find it, what is the quantitative understanding of our user, whether through outreach to them or use or product analytics, that we can understand their wants, their pain, and how to fix that from a feature or initiative process. Oftentimes, you'll be building something that doesn't exist, and you say, well, that doesn't exist in our product today. We don't know, how people are going to respond to that. Two good solutions here are data proxies, obviously, a little upstream about a customer who has a pain in a certain part of your app or product. What else would they be exhibiting, and how prevalent do we see that in our product analytics? And then there are also painted door tests, where you just make a dummy kind of presentation of an offer of what you're thinking of building, and you could measure just the traffic to that, and that ends up just generally going to a support page or something like that. And then the third thing here is that the analytics tells you about the what, it tells you about the percentage, it tells you about the flow of users. Talking to customers tells you the why. It really helps you understand their motivations and what's behind that behavior. What does the experience look like? I won't get into the full kind of UX process here, but obviously some parts here are to ideate through a number of different solutions and iterate. Obviously get prototypes in front of customers. This is where usability testing comes in big. The difference between user testing upstream about understanding the needs and wants of your customers is different than usability testing, which is, I've built this prototype, this is what we want to go and develop. Before we put all these dev resources into building this thing, does it do what we want it to do? Does a user understand how to do the tasks that we'd like this product to do well? There are a number of great, very inexpensive services out there that will help you get, at least certainly on iPhone and Android, prototypes in front of customers. And they can literally just tell you, it's recording on the mic for them, and they can just tell you their stream of consciousness of what they're seeing and what they're thinking. And as quantitative as I am, and as much as I love statistically significant outcomes, some of the best insights have been from listening to a recording of a user being like, I don't know what that does, and saying, oh, shit, well, we should figure out how to communicate this better. This is a big topic. How do we convey what we learned? Now we understand the user, we know what to build, we know what we want to go, how to make it look, how it should function. Is if you're writing user personas and if you're writing product requirements documents, please never start something with as a user. As a user is meaningless. A user could be anyone. There are 7 billion users in the world. You need to have some empathy for this user and understand, again, their context, where they're coming from, what they want to accomplish, why, and then layer 4 more whys to that. So it's really helpful if you are writing user stories to bring that specificity and that empathy to the user. So quickly, we're going to run through a real-world example from the world of subscription video. This is a screenshot of Netflix last night. I was scrolling, like everyone does, through multiple carousels, not really finding something. There are new episodes of a couple things. And this is something that I think we've all faced as users of things like Netflix and Prime, Hulu, et cetera, as well as Shudder and Sundance Now, certainly. It is this paradox of choice where there's a lot of content. They're spending billions on content, and I don't know what to watch. I don't know what movie to watch. I don't know what series to start. I end up texting a group thread and saying, like, hey, what are you guys watching? Is it good? Is Chernobyl good enough to resubscribe to HBO? That kind of stuff. So Netflix faces it. We certainly face it. We're orders of magnitude smaller in content spend. So we started thinking through, like, how do we fix this? Because this is a problem that we face as a business and our customers face. So first we started thinking about, okay, who's our customer? I won't bore you with the demographic data. We're aware of the demographic. We're aware of the psychographic. Some of the interesting things that came out of understanding a little bit more about our customers is that they have different preferences of subgenres. Horror is just an umbrella term. It's more of a feeling than a specific genre. So some people talked about how they like spooky movies. Some people said, I can't look away from gory movies. I love it. I want everything Saw. I want Saw 1. I want Saw 2. I want Saw 3. I don't know if Saw 4 exists. I'm not sure when they ran out. 7? Yeah, again. I will watch like suspense and thriller content, and I probably should have come with some promo codes, but I'm not into the Saw stuff. So other things we learn from user testing panels, they watch horror and thriller movies to get away from their day-to-day. So they definitely don't want more cognitive load of saying, like, what am I going to watch? When do I stop scrolling? And then they like Shudder's curation element, and that we recommend titles that are new to them. This is a curated service, so that like we might bring this like something from the Nordics that you would never heard, but it's actually a phenomenal series and you should watch it. So it's really difficult to convince someone they should watch it, but once they start watching it, they love it. It's called Jordscott. It's pretty good. It's pretty weird. So then we started to try to understand what is the customer problem. We have customer data that says, people pointed to, I can't find something to watch. I wasn't watching this enough, so I'm canceling it. And I will clearly state, this is a business problem, right? This is not a customer problem. I have customers canceling, that's my problem. But what I'm trying to get at here is that there's a customer pain of, I have this service, I'm not getting enough value from it, and I'm not watching enough. We saw customers' scrolling behaviors and the fact that they're going to 20 into the carousel to figure out what to watch. And then they especially complain on TV devices, on their Apple TV or Roku, just kind of swipe, swipe, or just click, 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 click. I think we've all probably been there. And then we watch The Office. So I've been on an Office kick. That's hence the GIF. But user interviews told us that, like I said, once they started watching something, they really liked it. They really got into it. And the ratings and review data backed that up. It said some interesting things. Well, I'll be damned, beauty in every angle. You can't see the 5-star or 5-skull ratings. I kneel at the altar of this one. Great movie, much better than what I thought. We're actually pleasing them. We're delighting them. This is great. How do I get more people to feel like this? And then one interesting one from this movie, 3 out of the 4 reviews in a row, I just searched for the word wow. Everyone just said wow. If you can get your customers to say wow, that's great. That's a great feeling. It means you're giving them something that they didn't expect, that they're happy about, that they're surprised and delighted by, and also scared in this case with Shudder. Okay, so a little bit of context. Our app, our product, like many other kind of subscription video services, you start with kind of the lowest amount of effort. There's a home screen with a big hero tile saying, this is what you should watch today, right now, for you. You want to put a little more effort, you go through the home page. You want to put a little bit more effort, we give you curated collections from our human curators, bringing together titles that we think are really special and really for our customers to watch. You want to put in more effort, you can browse our movies and series. More effort, you can search for a title. So we started to question, like, is there actually something that's easier? Because people are still not putting in the effort to find something they don't want to put in the effort, in fact. So we came up with the hypothesis of this customer benefit of, if I'm sitting in my couch, my butt's on the sofa, and I open the Shudder app on the TV, I don't have to think about which of hundreds of movies or series I want to start watching. Shudder will automatically preview one of 4 curated playlists that I could switch between. If I'm interested, I can just keep watching. If I do want to explore the full catalog, I always have that option. And so we explored this kind of like simulated live playlist with a set number of options, not hundreds, not one, somewhere in between, where you kind of fall into a movie and it's spooky and it's interesting and someone has a knife and you don't know what's going on. And it's actually worked really well. This was really interesting to experiment with on TV, and we learned a lot from it, and we certainly did it imperfectly. Some of the things we learned in our iterations of this, which is obviously critical, the where matters. This worked really well on TV, and web is a different beast. You don't have the same user behavior at 10 o'clock sitting on a sofa as you do on your laptop. Life is about balance. So initially we pushed this feature quite hard, and actually you just said, this is a little too much. I told you I actually want to go to watch your other stuff. We need to pull back on it. Customers needed information and agency, the ability to understand, what movie am I watching? Why? How do I restart it if I want to? And then we were clear about that they could actually watch the rest of the catalog. Our service has not changed hugely. And that this actually helped drive new customer experiences. So now that we had live playlists on all of our different devices, we've actually run live marathons with like live tweeting at the same time. And actually there's been a build of a community aspect from it, which has been really exciting. So that's just walking through one imperfect example of how we try to understand the customer, what we built from that, and a little bit of how we iterated from there. I will take any questions because I'm trying to be customer-centric. Going on. Yes?
What do you do when your customer and your actual end user want different things? Your customer who's buying from you versus they want something that's bad for the user?
Yeah, totally. So the question is, what do you do when your customer, your end user, I imagine in a B2B world, is that right? It wants something completely different than the end customer. I think then that's where you try to bring that product expertise and say, like, there are certain behaviors you're trying to drive, and this is where you lean on the data of a scale enterprise like B2B company, where you're trying to understand and convince someone, because product is all about really that influence. Bless you. It's really just about like how you are trying to drive outcomes for the product and in the business. And I think that's where you come especially armed with data about saying this is actually what's probably better for the product in the long term, and try to convince them of that. Some people are receptive to that. Other people, you might need to kind of build more of a coalition and figure out how you can try to make sure everyone understands what behaviors you're trying to drive and how that's going to manifest in the product that you're building. Sure. So the question is, tell me if this is accurate. The paradox of choice is probably a pain that customers and other subscription video services and potentially AMC's cable properties also feel. Was this a siloed solution, or did you roll it out more broadly, right? It's a very good question. We did roll it out and have experimented with it on Sundance Now, the most close sibling of Shudder. And this is kind of a part where the customer is important and the content is important, where you come into a serial drama show and it doesn't, you don't have 6 episodes of backstory. It's a little different than kind of dropping into a horror movie. Or you come into the middle of a documentary, it doesn't quite have the same emotion. So it's something that we've experimented with and are kind of dialing it appropriately. So it's something that we're definitely trying. And it's a case where, on one hand, there's commonalities in subscription services and you want to build a best practice product. And there's some cases where the content and the customer actually mean you should be making different product decisions. And so this was an example of going in the opposite direction. That's a really good question. I think the reason I didn't get to that is I think a lot of people first need to figure out the first line, which is like, how do I drive some feedback? How do I get some connection to customers? But you bring up a very good point that like you don't want to be looking at the vocal minority, maybe like fraction of a percentage that are actually reaching out to CS. What we've done is incentivized with a little thing called money. We've just said like, hey, there are surveys we'll give you money to Amazon. Again, I feel like I'm plugging Amazon, but everyone spends money there. So we've incentivized it that way. It's actually been a pretty inexpensive way to drive volume of customer feedback because these are pretty simple surveys. And generally, you can get a much broader swath of your customer base as opposed to who's tweeting at you or writing to support. Yeah. How do we organize UX and research versus product? I wish I had the like a problem of riches where I had like massive teams that could go that I could separate and give them each their own building. We have a very lean team, very small team. So a lot of our customer research around user experience is part of our design team because we see that as part of the workflow of creating successful user experiences. And in like the strategy, the prioritization of what are we building, how do we understand the customer. So that kind of sits within UX and design. And then we partner also with our marketing retention team, who also is the most in contact with customers often via support, via email campaigns, things like that, because they have a pretty direct line of communication to customers. So in our case, we kind of have this line of communication between the two. In general, if you're unable to kind of if you're still working towards a scale of having a dedicated research team, I really like it's kind of embedded and connected into product. It's a part of product. Part of it is UX research, and part of it is a little bit more purely quantitative. Can you? We all have biases, I guess. I think the most valuable user research has been upstream of even coming up with a product solution. So it's actually been more greenfield of just like, what are we trying to solve, and what are the specifics of this scenario that we should be building a product for? But I definitely I hear your question about like once you've built it, you want to kind of defend it a little bit more, and that's something that's why we have kind of group reviews. That's why we kind of discuss it together. Everyone should be devil's advocates there, but it's a very good question. You're right. Yeah, thank you guys.